Driving Culture Forward. This is HYPEBEAST Radio. We're sitting down with Kareem Biggs Burke, co-founder of Roc-A-Fella, as well as owner of Redo 96, 4th of November,
Reasonable Doubt.
Awesome, man. Biggs, how's it going?
Everything's good, man. Can't complain.
Good.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, I mean, like, let's just go ahead and get right into it. Air Force One, part of the Air Force One 100 collaboration. You're doing the Roc-A-Fella Air Force One. How was that? I
mean, it's dope, man. To see, it's actually an honor to see like these guys, in particular, Don C and Virgil, who, you know, I look at as offsprings of things that we created, you know, coming from the Kanye, umbrella.
Yeah, definitely.
And Kanye coming from our umbrella. Is something that I think is really dope, because everything that we do, we always try to open doors for other people, and to see how they've taken off, expanded what we've done, right? Opening up stores, and then what they're doing in fashion. I'm really happy to be a part of it, and not to take anything away from Travis and all the other guys too, because I think they're doing some dope stuff too. But it just touches me in a different way when I see the offsprings of, you know, things that we've created, man. And just see that people are doing things and they're successful with it. So I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, and I mean, earlier when we spoke, you mentioned, like, you know, you guys were buying like 200, 300 pairs of Air Force Ones at the time, like early in the 2000s. Like, you know, how was the story? What was the story behind the Roc-A-Fella, the initial Roc-A-Fella Air Force One?
It was just something that we did with Nike. It was going to be a friends and family thing. And it just became something that was highly coveted, and one of the most sought after Air Force Ones. They told me like top 5 of all time, especially on the resale market, which I just found out about a month ago. I didn't even know. So I mean, the love and the passion for the sneaker collecting isn't there how it used to be. You know, we would just, it wasn't even a part of collecting back then. We would just travel all over the world, you know, and just buying sneakers just because we loved it. It was about just staying fresh. And then now to see that people holding on to some of them sneakers and then the prices that they're going for is amazing. So actually, a big part of my collection I gave to my son and my nephews a while back, maybe about 5 years ago, and you know, they always asking for a job or to do something. I was like, well, look, go on eBay and go get money, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I mean, with this shoe coming back out, I'm pretty sure it's going to be like, you know, a collector's item again. You mentioned, like, you know, there's people who've been hitting you up for the pairs.
That's every second. I mean, there's people like, hey man, what's up? How's everything going? You know, we was in 2nd grade together. I'm like, okay. The people coming out the woodwork, people who don't usually contact me, everybody has something to say now. There's always a conversation they want to start up. And at the end of that conversation, it ends, when's the sneaker coming out? How can I get it?
Yeah.
And, or, yo, can I send you the money? I'm like, look, first of all, I don't sell sneakers, right? That's Nike's thing. The sneakers are going to be in the store. I can't, you know, say, okay, yo, hold 4 pairs for my man. I was like, what I'm going to do? You go into Bloomingdale's, I'm going to call a rep and say, yo, they coming over there, hold something for them. So people got to understand that, you know, there will be announcements of exactly when it's coming out. And I'm happy about the excitement and everybody gravitating towards, you know, the logo and the Air Force One, you know, coming together, showing allegiance. But I don't have any control. So please, if you want sneakers, just hit at Julia Lang up. She has all the connects.
Oh man. So on your Instagram, you mentioned, like, you know, just bringing them back out this time, like this one's for the culture and stuff. And then I also saw like a black and white version of the Air Force One as well, like for the Black album. Are there more colorways of the Air Force One?
Well, what I wanted to do is kind of go back to the origin. You know, for me, every time I do something, I like to start with the genesis and then build from there. Yeah. So for us, it was the white Air Force One. You know, I wanted to give that blank canvas and let people do whatever they wanted to do, because I know there's a lot of people who do a lot of aftermarket things. There's people who like to draw and be creative themselves. So let people kind of touch that. And then, you know, if there's color waves or something else that Nike wants to do, you know, we could revisit that as well.
And speaking of the genesis, I mean, like, you know, and the origin stories of it all, like last year you did like the whole Reasonable Doubt pop-ups and stuff. How was that?
I mean, that was dope. You know, starting out we did LA. I told everybody because they wanted the first one to be in New York. And usually when you're doing tours, you never do your home city first, right? You learn the tricks of the trade on the road, and then you perfect it, then you come back and do your city. So we started out at LA, but by the time we got to New York, I think we gave them something dope, you know, recreating D&D Studios, bringing the board that we recorded Reasonable Doubt on, and that was operable. So we was actually play the album through that and some unreleased J songs as well. But the thing that I like the most is when we did 22 pop-up shops in one day, you know, all across the U.S.
Yeah.
And then every store, you know, shout outs to Concepts, Almond Year, Social Status, Black Market, Politics. I know I'm leaving out a few. But, you know, those guys really did justice for everything that we created, and then and making it an experience. So when people come in, they got to feel what Roc-A-Fella was about.
Yeah, and there's like a clear distinction between like, you know, the aesthetic behind like, you know, Reasonable Doubt, as well as like, you know, Redo 96, and then 4th of November. Can you describe that?
Well, 4th of November is a denim line, so that pays homage to you know, denim. It's you know, pants, you know, outerwear. There's, you know, it's a full line. Reasonable Doubt is a new streetwear line that's going to do some things around merch, but it's going to also live on its own. And then Redo 96 is like a special design unit, but that's going to be more of a luxury tier of distribution. So with that, I wanted to create something that didn't just live in fashion. So whether it's designing tables, whether it's pressed juiceries, whatever it is, I can attach to it, long as it's cool and it's not compromising the integrity of the brand, and we can do it where it doesn't seem forced.
And for like, you know, a lot of hip hop fans, you know, they might look at the Reasonable Doubt tour, like they're looking at that merch, like, you know, with a whole new sense of excitement, just because like, you know, you guys didn't produce that much merch like early on. Was that like a conscious decision to be like, all right, let's go ahead, bring it back? And like,
that's what I wanted to do, but I even wanted to do something different. So I had all the designers listen to the album and then actually take the lyrics and create graphics from the lyrics. So I wanted to do something a little different. Nobody was really doing that at the time. So, you know, it might have been one bar or two bars or a line that really stuck out to them. And then, you know, a lot of times when people hear you know, those albums, them songs, they could relate to whatever graphic it is. So I thought that was dope to bring something a little different. And then that's what got me actually in a space for, you know, just to make it a streetwear line so Reasonable Doubt can live beyond just, you know, the merch. Because it's, you know, for so long people want to see those same pictures and stuff, and I want to keep that close to. I don't want to let it out so much where it becomes, you know, a space that can be overcrowded with just the same photo and imagery. So I want to create some new things for the people too.
So let's revisit those years. I mean, like, you know, the early Roc-A-Fella days. Like, what was your life like before, like, you know, meeting Dame and Jay?
I mean, fortunately, life was great. You know, so you go through some things, and then you know, where we're from, and the three of us have a similar story because we all kind of succumbed to the streets. So with that, I was lucky to do, you know, to be pretty well off, you know, in my later teenager years. But it was also fun times. So being in Harlem, being with the crew, my crew, the Best Out, about 13 guys, and it's like we lived for each other. It was this brotherhood, and guys were all from different parts of Harlem. Some people that lived in the Bronx, born in Harlem, whatever. We always met at 142nd or 141st and Lenox. That was home base for us. And that was actually the block where Dame came up with the idea for us to start Roc-A-Fella. So, you know, that sprung out of the, you know, the Best Out, and that's probably where I learned all my early marketing, seeing that the impact that we had on a lifestyle and the movement that we were creating at that time. You know, most people refer to it as the culture, but it's the lifestyle and movement. But I think that taught us a lot, because we seen how much influence that we had on Harlem, and how much influence Harlem had on the world.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, Harlem, you know, is well known within the hip hop, like, you know, culture as being one of the most focal fashion points. Like, you know, how is fashion influenced like, Roc-A-Fella's career throughout?
I don't know if fashion influenced our career, but the influence that we had on fashion.
Yeah.
I mean, it was dope because it was three guys that always wanted to touch something. It was that same. I think it's a little similar to what people gravitating towards now is the gift of discovery. So being able to find that one or two pieces where that a lot of people won't have it. I mean that. And then being expensive and knowing that people couldn't really afford it where we were from, it was a good feeling to be able to go back and then show these, these new garments off, whether it was Iceberg, Versace or Moschino, things like that, Hermes early on. So, we were wearing all the stuff in 94.
Yeah. So, just speaking about like, fashion in 94, like what were some of the major brands that you were wearing back then? Like I heard like Iceberg was like something that you were well known for.
Yeah. So in 96, I stopped wearing Iceberg, and that's probably when because everybody started wearing it. So it became something a little more mass. And, then it wasn't in just the 2 or 3 boutiques. It was kind of everywhere. So I just got tired of it. The price point was a little different too. And I think the quality changed. So, but, to go back, we was, Emery, he used to love these Bobby Jones, these polo shirts too. We used to wear, but, the Hermes, Moschino, there was so many brands, but a lot of them didn't really last, but they was in these small boutiques all around Soho.
Cool. So what motivated you guys to want to later on to start your own fashion line versus partnering with like a brand? I mean, like during the 90s, there were like a lot of rappers that were getting endorsements, but Tommy Hilfiger, Ralph Lauren, etc. Like what made you guys all right, instead of partnering with like Iceberg, we're gonna do this by ourselves?
Well, I think that goes back to the Roc-A-Fella story. So even, having a guy like Jay, who, arguably today is the, one of the best music artists ever. I wouldn't even say just hip hop. All the doors were being closed, so nobody believed in him, right? So we had to, we took fate in our own hands and chose to do that ourselves. And even with the notoriety and the fame that we were, that was happening for us, and that Iceberg, at the time, even after Jay put it in songs, and we were seeing the influence and the impact that we had once we talk about something, how people will go and buy it right away. We asked them about a deal, an endorsement, and they turned us down.
What? That's crazy.
Yeah, so that's what, we said, okay, we'll do it ourselves. And the same thing with Belvedere. So Jay talked about Belvedere all the time, and they wouldn't give us even product for a video. And then that's when we started Armadale Vodka. So every time a door was closed for us, we went and kicked it down and opened up our own door.
Yeah. The early discussions of what Roc-A-Fella would be, initially, was it just to be a record label, or did you guys always have that vision of being like a conglomerate, or it's going to be like...
It was always a vision to be a conglomerate.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool. What was some of the first areas that you guys wanted to tackle aside from music?
It was really broad. I don't think it was, there wasn't a plan. It was
just we're going to do everything.
Yeah, so now when I tell you, I'm thinking ahead, it's more in a business plan sense. Before, it was just ideas. It wasn't a white wall, white paper. It wasn't anything going on. It was just let's do this, and the ideas never stopped. I joked about it all the time because I remember we talked about opening the Rock Amusement Park. And that was one of the things that we didn't do. Yeah. I remember Dame we can have our own great adventures. We just yeah, we can do it. Dame's are a great motivator and not only an executor, but he's a great business mind.
Yeah, just revisiting how I came hip to Roc-A-Fella and stuff and Jay, but I recall the Streets is Watching movie and stuff.
Yeah.
Was that your guys' first venture doing all right, we're gonna do a film, no more music videos?
Well, that happened because we was following Puff, and we released Sunshine, a song with Foxy and Babyface. And Hype Williams did it, and the Streets was nope. We was reaching, trying to get that that popularity and the crossover and get that acclaim, but it didn't do so well. So we knew we had to hit the streets. So actually, Shaka Pilgrim, she had the idea to kind of do this B-sides, and to do The Streets Is Watching and to make it into a movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and again, speaking of like movies, like it's coming up on like the 15-year anniversary of like, Paper Soldiers, State Property, as well as Paid in Full, which is like, one of the well-known classics as far as like hip hop movies go.
We finally got that classic through. That's the one I would say that I'm most proud of.
Yeah.
Obviously, Paper Soldiers was cool because that launched Kevin Hart's career, and that was dope too, finding somebody that was so talented and seeing what he's doing right now. But I don't think there's nothing like Paid in Full. That's that classic like Menace to Society and things like that. So it kind of gave everybody around the world something to see from the East Coast perspective.
And then I mean, like, just with that film Paid in Full, there being just such like, a classic and stuff like that, what were some of like your favorite memories from like recording that?
From recording what, the
like
movie?
Producing the movie,
just being around Harlem, and seeing all the crowds grow up, like being from a place like that, growing up there, and then being able to come back to actually shoot a movie was really dope. Yeah. Especially getting all your childhood friends involved. So a lot of our childhood friends actually worked on the film, to give that aesthetic, the way people talk and everything like that, so it had to be right.
Yeah. Cool. So, I mean, like, picking back just up on like, the story timeline of Roc-A-Fella. I mean, you guys were all over the map and doing everything. So talk about like, around the early 2000s where you guys started like picking up more artists, and those artists started doing like, becoming successful on their own, like, with Cam and Dipset, as well as Benny and State Property, and then Kanye as well.
Yeah, and then you can't forget about Bleak, right? So he was, one of the first artists that we had, even prior to Roc-A-Fella, and he had a lot of success as well. So Bleak was a staple of Roc-A-Fella, but definitely, I mean, when Beanie came through and the whole State Property movement happened, that was definitely something that gave us energy all over again. So we took that and then made a label, a clothing line, a movie, so we always looking to make things brands, and then to make sure that the artists as well learn the business so they could become their own CEOs and they could branch away. So even though, we signed an artist to 4 or 5 or 6 album deals, they could have walked away at any time if they felt a better situation was somewhere else. So we always wanted to teach them, from our experiences how to build their own, because we know that it doesn't last forever. So we always say, look, do something outside of music.
And I mean, like, I feel like each of those, like, artists and groups definitely took that, like, advice, and they've done like their own things as well, and became successful, like, on their outright, where it just didn't feel like they were tied to, like, a label.
And DJ Clue too, I want to give him a shout out. I don't talk much about him, but he was a big part of it too. And then he was the first mix tape DJ to go platinum. Yeah. So we did that, we did that as well.
Talk about like, that just that mentorship that you guys did, like lend out to like your artists and stuff as well, because today I think there's like a juxtaposition between like, up and coming artists that do go the independent route or end up signing with like a label. There doesn't seem to be that much mentorship there. Yeah,
I think going back to the beginning, I didn't know much about the business in per se. I just believed in Dame and Jay. So when they came to me and asked me to be a part of it, and me giving them an offer they couldn't refuse, it was a great thing for all of us. But the integrity and the honor that we had, we knew that we wouldn't take advantage of anybody. So even when the artists would come to us to sell their publishing, we would say, no, that's not how you do it. Wait till these songs come out, wait till you get some traction, and then go get a publishing deal, because you'll get more money that way. So it was all about just being fair, So that was just something that, we came up on, and, it was easy for us to kind of just show the next generation how to do it, and how to monetize exactly what they had going on in and outside of music.
Yeah. You mentioned like, early on you didn't really know that much about the business side of the music. And what were some like, things that you've learned throughout the years that really helped you, like not just within like, any music endeavors that you may have done, but also like, with clothing as well?
Well, I think anything that I do, I try to learn everything from A to Z. So it was a learning process. Dame had more of the business knowledge then, because he had managed 2 different groups prior to managing Jay. And because the labels didn't do right by him, he had to go and learn every single position. So when we started, I spent a lot of time with the marketing department. I spent a lot of time with the radio, legal, then it's the publishing, right? And, the street team going back to marketing, then the video department. So we had probably about 5 or 6 in the beginning. And everybody it wasn't too many people that was really seasoned at that time. But we all kind of learned together. And we just kind of put ideas together. And like Jay said, the genius thing that we did is we didn't give up. So we always believed in ourselves, and we had self-motivation as well. So we was always able to push each other and then push ourselves beyond whatever limits there were.
I mean, just the success story of just Roc-A-Fella. It's very just inspiring, because it's like you guys learned on your own, and you guys made mistakes along the way, and then but corrected those later, and then that helped flourish later on in your careers. Just how do you think that a lot of artists or just groups can learn from that nowadays? Because it does seem like there's a disconnect where it's they're coming out the gate, they might have one successful song, and then they're successful over the night, and there wasn't really that much of a learning curve there.
Yeah, it's all about studying your craft. It's funny because we didn't have, it wasn't like we were schooled. Jay dropped out at 10th grade. Dame got his GED as well. I'm the only one, luckily, that graduated from high school, and I hated school. So I would tell kids to stay in school. It's a lot of things that you can learn from there, but also internships. So a lot of the people that have success right now in the music industry, a lot of them all intern for us, so you think about where Emmanuel is right now, the VP at Atlantic, Shaka being the president, she was the president of Rock Nation, Lenny S, another guy, street team, G. Robeson, managing Nicki Minaj, he was our intern, Shari, she was vice president over at Atlantic as well, interns, all these people now, they're in a place of power, and Latrice as well. Over at Epic. So it's so good to see, what came out of it, because it was always like a family atmosphere as well. So we really cared about everybody. So we would want to hear about what's going on at home, how we can help. And it was a big family unit. People would bring their kids to work. Everybody knew each other's families, and it was a relationship that was built with everybody.
Yeah, so speaking of that family dynamic, how much of that changed once you guys did the partnership with Def Jam?
It didn't. It actually grew, because we had to be an even tighter unit, because we knew that Def Jam was fighting to take some of the notoriety that we were building, right? So, we see their logo on something, or if we do a tour, they want to give out jackets, something like that. So we became even tighter, and we became a force to be reckoned with, because then people started to see that we can really do this on our own, so it was a co-venture, and we needed their resources for some things, but a lot we was able to carry on our own.
Gotcha. Can you real quick just define a co-venture, because there's a lot of artists nowadays that are say we're partners with a label, but they're not really partners. You guys were 50-50 partners as far as revenue too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we were it was 50% us, but it was 25% Def Jam and 25% Universal.
Gotcha.
So a lot of people, they see backstage when Dame was calling Kev Lyles a quart of water. That's where that came from. So we had a great deal back then, because it was built in with a formula. So we knew that we would be selling the company in a certain amount of time. So it was advantageous to us to push the numbers up and to sell the records that we did. And even though the deal was it was probably more against us than for us, because it's usually artists start to fail their second or third album in a rap career, especially back then. We actually hit it out of the park on our second album, with that co-venture with Hard Knock Life. So after selling 6 million records, and we sold half of the company in 2002. Then we did an extension to 2005.
Yeah.
And then after that, we stayed on for consulting. And then we started, 2 different labels.
Do you ever get any just aspirations to jump back into the music whenever you see how like some of these artists are handling their business? You're like, I'm over it.
No. And I mean, I'm getting a lot of calls from artists too, especially a lot of upcoming artists, like 21 Savage management team. Shout out to them, Key and Meezy. A Boogie, his CEO, QP, shout out to him. People call Danny Sue from Fetty Wap's team. They call me all the time, and Young Thug's crew as well. Shout out to them for advice. And I'm just here to give free advice. I don't want to be in the business. If it's a relationship that we can build and I can help them do something outside of music, I'm more interested in that. But if they need help for music, I'm just a phone call away. I'm not trying to monetize that.
Yeah, I mean, and another another artist that's been very outspoken about how influential you've been to them is Pusha T. Mixed drugs and show money, Burke on tour. How was the relationship fostered between you and Pusha?
It's been really good. It's funny because I didn't know him personally until a few years ago. So hearing this my name in the songs and stuff like that, and him paying homage. Was great. And then once we got to meet each other, from his perspective, he was like, it was legendary. It was good to meet, but I was a fan of his too. Obviously the clips was dope,
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so no longer music. Are you just focusing now on fashion and all that comes with it, as well as I heard TV might be a possibility too?
Yeah, there's a film division as well too. Okay. So we're looking to see what that how that's going to pan out. I mean, there's a lot of things that I do outside of music. I don't want to talk about that now. Those would be, other things in the financial area and investing that will be the next chapter. And, I want to come and talk about that as well. And then also kind of open up doors in a different way where people probably wouldn't be thinking something I would be doing. But that's going to be coming soon too. So it's a lot of things that I'm doing with investing and M&As, mergers and acquisitions as well.
Now you mentioned earlier, that you're happy to give out music advice. Do you ever think that you'll down the road give out fashion advice as well, just on what
I give out advice with definitely all the time, however whatever I can do to help.
Yeah. So I mean let's talk about just your first. I guess I want to say foray into fashion, with Roc-A-Wear, and then everything that you've learned through there. So were you always into fashion? Was that always a thing that you thought about? I can one day be a designer.
I never thought about it from a business perspective. It was just about staying fresh, and we liked clothes. But once there was an opportunity to get into business, then it was how do you got the same thing. You got to go to every different department and learn the business, right? So the same thing as the sales, it's the manufacturing. I talked about it earlier, with CADs and tech packs and design and knowing what you could and can't do, and logos and legal. And I mean, it was a huge learning curve for us there too. But after you got that knowledge, it was easier for the second time around for me.
What was the exact moment when you knew that you guys had something with Roc-A-Wear?
Probably 18 months when we started doing $90 million in 18 months.
Wow,
So I mean, Roc-A-Wear back then became a $700 million company. So yeah, we did 90 million in 18 months, and that was crazy. It just exploded. So there was definitely some good stuff around too, and competition too, with Fat Farm being one, and then Sean John, I think, coming right afterwards. But we was able to hold our ground.
Yeah. All right, cool. So I mean, let's go ahead and fast forward and just talk about nowadays with your ventures and Redo 96. What was the decision to change it from Rock 96 to Redo 96?
I wanted to leave rock where it is.
Yeah.
And doing this collaboration with Nike and the Roc-A-Fella Air Force One, I think is really dope. But I want to kind of move past that, even though is always going to be something dear to my heart. I don't want everything to be rock related, you know. So Jay is doing Rock Nation over there as well. So I just wanted to kind of do something different. I thought Redo had something to do with the past, but it also has a lot to build in the future.
Gotcha. And then I just wanted to get your thoughts on, like, you know, Jay's latest album, like 444. Just as you've, like, you know, discussed about growing throughout your career, and, like, you know, just how you're thinking, like, you know, 3 to 4 years ahead as well. It seems like Jay's in a space right now where it's like it's no longer thinking about, like, you know, we don't just want a piece anymore. Like, we want to be like our own, like, you know, conglomerate as well. Just doing everything that he did with, like, you know, Roc-A-Fella with you guys, but doing it like even bigger now. Like, you know, he has Tidal and stuff. What were some of, like, your favorite business takeaways from, like, that album?
I don't know if it was a business takeaway, because, you know, me and Jay is, you know, we're pretty close, so we speak often. But the biggest takeaway from the album was him placing himself in putting himself in a place of vulnerability and letting the people and open up in a different way. You know, especially after, you know, Beyonce's came out with her album, and for him to kind of open up, but not only about what happened with their relationship, but just overall in his life, and then talk about, you know, things that happened from the beginning up to now. I thought that was great, you know, to show the maturity and see where he is now in his life, and talking about financial responsibility, you know, and things like that, and really trying to school people, you know. So we came into the game and there was a lifestyle, right? You know, the platinum, the Cristal, the Range Rovers, the cars, and the luxury. But now it's like, okay, look, I learned from that. You guys don't have to follow and do what I did. You know, this is where I'm at now because I made some decisions, and this is how you can get here, by making these decisions without going through the pitfalls that I've been through.
Gotcha. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like, in other current news as well, like, there's been DJ battles going on between, like, you know, Swizz did one with Just Blaze, and there's talks of, like, you know, Timberland and Pharrell doing one, both who produced for, like, you know, Jay, and then there's also a possibility of, like, Pharrell and Kanye. Like, what do you think about those DJ battles, given, like, you know, just the stories of how there used to be beat battles in the studio sessions with you guys?
I mean, I think it's dope, because at the end of the day, everybody's kind of laughing and hugging it out.
Yeah.
You know, back then in the battles, after the battles, like, man, this and that guy might be going to get his gun or something crazy.
Yeah.
But I think it's dope, man. I think it's real dope, and it's something different, you know. So especially now with all the social networks where you could kind of watch it live, or you know, or go on YouTube and see what happened. I think it's real dope, especially that people are participating on a high level that these producers are on.
Who would you like to see, like, as far as, like, a matchup? Who do you think that people are sleeping on, that, like, you don't want to battle this person?
I think Bink and Just Blaze.
Yeah, that's who you want to see next. That'd be good. Yeah, definitely. So you mentioned social media, and, like, you know, just how, like, that's given people a whole new way to, like, you know, just engage with their favorite artists. How do you think that social media would have, like, you know, affected Roc-A-Fella back then?
I think we try to adapt to whatever's going on. The difference now is that people think everybody's an influencer because they have a certain amount of likes or followers, you know. So just because, you know, 1 million or 2 million people are following, whether that's paid or not, doesn't make you an influencer. So I always look at the people who influence the influencers, right? And it doesn't matter what they have socially, but I can tell by, you know, whether they're charismatic, how they carry themselves, or what's going on. You can kind of feel their movement without paying attention to the numbers. So that's more important.
Are there any, like, you know, just current up and coming, like, you know, movements, whether that be, like, music or anything outside of it, that makes you, like, you know, inspired these days, where you're like, all right, this is dope, this is something I can mess with?
Yeah, I think it's there's a lot, but for me, I'm looking at things that's outside of music right now, because I'm trying to expand, you know, I guess my empire, you know, sort of say. But I'm actually looking at things outside the U.S. and I'm going to be traveling really soon. So I'm hoping to really bust down some doors in a new way and just show people, like, look, in a short amount of time, no matter what you go through, you know, you can make it, as long as you have, you know, self-motivation. For me, it's my belief in the Lord, you know, and that's what carries me and gives me my strength every day. But I just want to show people from example, and be humble, while I'm doing it. So a lot of times, back then, you always had to stand guard and everything like that. I think that's something also that I see different in Jay, how humble he is at this point. You would think at this point of him success business-wise, financially, that he can brag or do whatever more than ever. But he turned all that back, and has become more humble. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. So, the way that we like to end our podcast is just by offering some advice for aspiring creatives that might be interested in doing a similar career path. That being said, if you were to rewind the clock and then go all the way back to the very beginnings of Roc-A-Fella, where it's Dame's all right, this is what we want to do with Roc-A-Fella. What advice would you lend to all three of you guys on how to be really successful in the business, or even more successful than you guys have been?
Well, I think another part of our success too was our stamina and our ability to work long hours and do things that other people didn't want to do. But some people only have the stamina to go so far. So not to overexert yourself, but at the same time, learn as much as you can about the business before you get into it. So as much success as we had, our first album, we didn't sign the best deal for Reasonable Doubt, even though that's something that we still own today together. We could have done much better because we lost probably $3-4 million after going gold. So really know the craft of the business. Don't just have an idea, but figure out what the numbers are and then use that as a platform to try to get into something else. So and early on also we spread ourselves really thin. After we had the success, having 20 and 30 companies. So I would also say build a good team, but more importantly, build a team with people that you want to be in relationship with. Don't just chase the check.
It's amazing. All right. On that note, thank you for dropping by.
Yeah,
we appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And we look forward to see what you got next.
All right, cool.